All right, we are recording now. All right. Down. All right. Oh, at home. I remember to bring that camera holder. Oh. Yeah, I'm just thinking that. Okay. Oh, you brought the wrong one? Okay. Oh, you can actually do, yeah, you can grab the one off the shelf here. Yeah. Okay. Yes, Gimel. That's that one's Zigros Moshe though. It's down one shelf. Shlomo, do you know where the page? Yeah, possibly. Oh, yeah, that's so nice. Come take a seat. All right. Do you have it there?
No.
There's no Gimel?
Fine.
All right. Well, I think Shlomo's bringing the sheets. So, thank you, Shlomo. It'll be the one down, one shelf down. No, nothing there. Okay. So we are in Reishai and Vav. We're up to Simon. Let me put it right here. We're up to Simon. Sorry, Sif Daled in Reishai and Vav. Sif Aleph introduces this topic about what happens if a non-Jew lights a candle for a Jew, and basically the rule at the end of the day was if it was lit, the non-Jew did it for himself, him or herself, then the Jew could use it. If there was for the Jew, then not so. Then no, you can't use it. There's really not much actually to discuss about that. And actually, I'm remembering now that we did do a good chunk of Sif Beis, where we talked about what happens if there's a group. So you have Jews and non-Jews who are sitting together, and we talked about how it mattered who was the rove. Who was the rove? If you couldn't ascertain with any clarity as to why the non-Jew lit a candle for this group, if the non-Jew did it again for himself in that context and space, then of course the answer is that I can use it as a Jew. But if it's unclear, they just lit it tam. They lit it tam for the group. Then it depended upon who was the majority. Okay, that was basically what we had covered in the Shulchan Aruch part of Sif Beis. Then we were about to embark on the Ramah. We did a little bit, and I promised you actually a very important in-depth discussion now about the heter of the Baal of the Shita of the Baal Ha'itor, who is a Das Yochid. Okay, is a singular opinion, and we're going to see actually came out everybody disagrees with the Baal Ha'itor, but somehow he made his way into the opinion of the Ramah. And so, as I was discussing with somebody yesterday, we were eating lunch somewhere yesterday, and the topic of it's interesting how these things work in life. The topic of Amir Lanoche came up. I said, "Oh, I'm in the middle of it right now," and this idea sort of came up that people going over to the aid of this one or this one, okay. Now, not for things that are related to this person who had an aid, and no, stop, like we needed this light, we needed this, we needed that, the concept of sort of the Shabbos goy came up. So I made reference to what we learned a little last week and what we're going to learn in more in depth. So let's read the Ramah one more time because I think we did it at the end, but let's get some more on it.
Are you reading upstairs or in the?
Yeah, upstairs where it says Yesh Omrim,
Oh, that's Gimel.
No, in Sif Beis, after the Shulchan Aruch ends, right? Sif Reish Ayin Vav Sif Beis, the last words of the Shulchan Aruch were Afal Pisha Rov Yisrael Mutter. Then it says Hagah.
Which page?
It says Nun Vav on the top of my page.
The previous page. Yeah.
Nun Vav. Okay. And we're in Sif Bet, and then 5 lines from the top of the page where the Ramah says Yesh Omrim. Okay, so
my vision says Yesh Omrim. No,
yeah, it's a picture.
I can't find you, but
yours says Yesh Omer.
Yeah, that's why the confusion. It says yes. Okay.
Okay,
Oh, sorry. It says Yesh Omer. Okay, do you see that, Simeon? Does yours say
okay,
Yesh?
yes.
Have to say
Um,
it.
Im yesh omer de mutar lomar.
Yes, correct,
le'enu
Simeon.
Yehudi.
What do you have, Steve? It's interesting because it would make sense if there's Yesh Omer. And then someone wants to make the point. There's the one guy who says, okay, that's interesting. Shino is close here. I don't, I'm going to guess that my addition is. I wonder if this edition, which is a newer or later edition, is an attempt to correct or whatever. I never. Usually, if it's Yesh Omer, it's like Yesh Misha Omer. Like it's like there's there's the one who said like I don't know. It's interesting. We have to look at the original manuscript to know what's the correct one. Okay. All right. Yesh Omer or Yesh Omrim. Okay, depending on your girsa. The mutter lomer le'ena Yehudi lahadlik loner le'suda Shabbos. There are those who say it's permissible to ask a non-Jew, to tell a non-Jew, to kindle a candle for your Suda Shabbos. Mishum d'svir le'te mutter le'amir le'nochri. Because there are those, because there are those who hold that it's permissible that to tell a non-Jew to do something, even if it's a malacha gemura. Now that's code word for deoraita, right? Deoraita. It's a malacha, which means it's an isra deoraisa. Okay, bimko mitzvah. So you have a shvut. B'moko mitzvah. You are Amir Lenochri knocks it down from a Doraisa to a Derabanan, and then by its very nature, because telling a non-Jew to do something is a Derabanan. Okay, and B'moko mitzvah, the Baal HaItur allows this. Now, keep going. Shal Pizeh Nahagu Rabim. Now, based on this opinion that Yesh Omer or Yesh Omrim. Many, he points out, many are become accustomed lahakel badavar, to become very lenient on this issue. Litzavos le'eno Yehudi, to command a non-Jew lahadlik neros letzorech suda, to kindle candles for the needs of a meal. Bifrat, in particular, b'seudas chasana, a wedding meal. How often the wedding meals were held on Friday night in connection, because that way they didn't have to double pay. Right? That way you had your Shabbos meal and your chasana. And it wasn't like today, where you invited 350 people to the chasana. I don't think that's what happened. Sure, you had family, maybe you had a friend, but it wasn't like, you're like, how does that help you that you make it into a Shabbos meal? It helped because you already were going to you're making a nicer Shabbos meal. So you're killing two birds with one stone, as it were. And so that was very customary. And also he mentions here, Mila. And I always remember last week I was like, that's brit Mila. Like, what is that? Isn't that in the morning? And I wonder, and I don't know the answer to this question. If somebody has some ability to do a little research, I was thinking about this. I wonder if a bris fell out on a Friday, that people didn't try to do something similar. I don't know that for sure. I'm not saying this with any certainty. I'm wondering out loud right now. Did people postpone the bris to a little bit later in the day? Which you're really supposed to do. You're supposed to do it as early as you can. But sometimes when push comes to shove, finances make a difference. I wonder if there are people who made a bris a little bit later in the day, and then they combined it with their Suda Shabbos. I'm just wondering out loud. Yeah, Tommy.
It was a dark morning,
Yes.
and they needed more light in the to do the bris.
That's also a possibility.
That's probably the
But
better
it's here talking about the Sudas bris, Mila.
Yeah,
Talking Sudas Chassan and Sudas Mila. Now, if it was, which means that they would have needed the. I hear maybe.
the rooms are dark rooms. I mean,
Sorry. Yeah.
it's possible.
Okay, that's very possible. I mean, it's very possible that's what the Mila part here is. That it was darker, and therefore they wanted some light for the Suda, even though it was during the day. Yeah, possible. Simeon, you have what to add on this? Go ahead.
Rav, what you just read about the Yesh Omrim, that there are many people, that is absolutely contra to what we have already learned.
100%.
Literally, akum is definitely prohibited. If you can't do it on Shabbos, you cannot on Shabbos tell a non-Jew to do it for you.
100%. So what we're going to learn when we get to, and we'll make a reference to it today. Actually, I'm not going to make you wait like 5 years to get to it. But in Shin, I think it's in Shin Zion, where there are other laws that relate to daber davar, to how we speak on Shabbos. There will come a psak that shvus the moko mitzvah is permissible. That if I tell a non-Jew to do a dirabanan, a issa dirabanan, when the situation is, one that relates to a mitzvah, then we will be lenient. But here, what the Baal HaItor's position suggests is a shavus b'makom mitzvah, simply one dirabanan. I could tell I tell the non-Jew to do a doraisa. That is a different level. The Rambam disagrees with this. The Tosfos disagrees with this. Again, Kimat, everybody disagrees with this opinion of the Baal HaItor that you could tell a non-Jew to do a deoraisa. No, a derabanan. The psak halacha is. I'm telling you, halacha lamaisa right now. If you tell a non-Jew to do a something that's asur mi derabanan, so now you have a derabanan on top of a derabanan. The thing is only asur derabanan, and now telling a non-Jew to do something is also in asur derabanan. A shvus, deshvus, a derabanan on top of a derabanan. B'makom mitzvah or b'makom tzorech gadol, we'll talk about what that means. What is a great need? Is permissible. It is permissible. That is a psak halacha that we will get to later in Shulchan Aruch. Not for a while, but I'm telling you now. But here, the Baal HaItor's suggestion, and the Ramah quotes this, and that people are noheg to do things like the Baal HaItor, is that even if it's just a deoraisa, but there's a great need or a mitzvah, the Baal HaItor permitted it. Again, so Simi, you're absolutely right. Every other opinion that we're going to talk about is not going to allow this. That's why we're going to have some harsh words, but we're also going to rely on the Baal HaItor in certain circumstances.
Okay.
I recognize that there are a lot of people having their own opinions, and the whole notion of Shabbos Goy is very difficult to defend on
Yeah.
Shabbos. But
Yeah,
it's there.
I admit that too.
But for Rav Yosef Cairo to put it in his sefer like that, I don't get it.
Well, this is really the Ramah, first of all, who's adding this in, and he's quoting this.
Ramah.
And again, he's quoting a Rishon. The Ran quotes the Baal HaItor in his Perush on the Gemara in the Gemara. So. Yes, it's in Hilchot Shabbat, Perak Rabbi Eliezer Demila. This is where you'll find the Ran who mentions this opinion. Again, it's a Das Yachid, but we'll explain a little bit where the Baal HaItor got off with this opinion. Did he make it up, or did he read the Gemara differently than he read the Gemara a little differently than other Rishonim? Right? So he'll defend himself, but just know that's not how most read the Gemara. Okay. Now, yes.
I think you're talking just about illuminating the room and not because we're talking about Suda, not lighting a candle under a chafing dish.
No, this is not for the food. I think this is for light.
It's for light. Yeah.
Light in the room. Light in the room. That's definitely how I've been reading this. Yeah.
But you mentioned last week that in today's era where a lot of the lights are not a filament, they're no longer a deoraisa. So according to
right, correct. You're right.
Deoraisa, then that's okay in today's era as long as it's
if you have to have a shvus b'makom mitzvah. Yeah, you have to have that. It's only so. In case for those of you listening on Zoom, so Jeffrey pointed out very well that not all, but a lot of the lights that we use today that illuminate our houses. Don't have a glowing hot filament, that the Rambam would say is an Aish. I can hear Rav Herschel Schechter in my head right now, saying those words that the Rambam holds that if it's glowing red, that's the Mavir and it's a Deoraisa. But if many of our lights today, LED lights, I don't believe work in such a way. So perhaps it's only the Rabbanon, and that would open the door to some more heterim, because if there's a real great need, there's a mitzvah situation, And shvus the shvus with makom mitzvah. Again, it's not something you should a priori rely on. It's not like, oh, I'll leave my lights off on Shabbos, and when I need a Shabbos goy because I know I'm going to have a Shabbos Suda, he's only like you follow. He's only when you fall into that circumstance because you forgot, something went out, something happened. You should not, before Shabbos, you should set things into motion to avoid such things.
What about catering in Shabbat?
What do you say?
Catering in Shabbat.
When they light those sternos?
Yeah, that's what I was.
Yeah,
Fire.
it's,
Thinking about the same thing.
do they do that? I'm just wondering out loud. Do they light the sternos on Shabbos? I don't know. It's a good question. In our shul, I think a lot of the stuff, and maybe Rabbi Schneider is on Zoom. Maybe I don't know. Maybe he can weigh in a little bit in terms of what goes on, with some of the caterers that he's seen. But my recollection is always that unless it's Yontif, like we had these hot boxes that they put in the food all in before Shabbos, and that stuff gets taken out when it's time for Kiddush. I've seen only the sternos usually like when we've had Yontif meals here, like it was a Shavuos meal, there's a Simchas Torah. So then the sternos, but it's a different story because you could transfer fire on Yontif. So that's but to do it on Shabbos,
I've never seen.
I would be, I would probably protest a little bit. Yes, Simeon, quickly, yes, go ahead.
But on Shabbos, if you do the Amira Liyakum, don't you have a bishul problem?
Because now they're going to cook. Now they're going to cook with the
Yeah.
Well, that's a separate problem. Then I'm not allowed to ask them to cook anything. Yeah, no, it's 100%. The non-Jew can't cook for me on Shabbos.
The idea is that it's prepared.
Right. Yeah. The idea is like when they have the sternos, that prompt you that that it's already cooked. So ein bishul achar bishul, just warming it up. But they can't do that. A non-Jew can't light a fire to warm something up for you. That's for sure. That light was the candle was then lit for sure for the Jew, and now you're going to benefit from it. That doesn't seem right.
No, I don't get this. Okay.
So, by the way, last very important words before the end of the period there in that Ramah, he says ve'ein mochem biyadam, and we shouldn't, you don't need to make a protest if people rely on the Bal Ha'itur. Sudas Chasana or Bris Mila, you don't need to get up and start causing a scene and a ruckus. There are times in halacha when you should do that, but he says, "Ve'ein mochem biyadam." Okay, don't protest with what's in their hand, meaning, like it's fine. Okay, it's not great, but don't. And we'll see what the Mishnah Berurah says about that in a moment. Now, v'yesh lahachmir, says the Rama, v'yesh lahachmir. There are those who are stringent, b'mokom she'ein tzorech gadol. But if there's no great need, people are machmir. There's no great need. The harov haposkim cholkim al svarazo, because most poskim disagree with the Bal Ha'itur, and so therefore, unless there's some extremely great need, we don't rely on this opinion. And then he says very important words. V'ayin lekaman siman shin zayin sifei. And if I'm remembering when I used to sit in Rabbi Weider's shir, if the Rama or the Mishnah Berurah ever did something like that, and if I and Lekaman Simon whatever, and we had to prepare them the koros, so he would always make sure to call on somebody and said, "Can you read this comment?" And they're like, "Oh, just says I and Lekaman Simon Shin Zayin Sefei." Good. So what did he say there? He always checked. Did you go and look in the other spot for? Did you go look it up? So let's make sure we're going to do that right now. If you look at Shin Zayin. So those of you who have, by the way, a full edition of your Shulchan Aruch, you could just flip to the page for a second. Others can listen. But over there in Shin Zayin Sif Hey, I'm just flipping here so I get to find the right spot. Okay, which again is far down the road. The reason again it's all scattered is because it's going according to the order of how Shabbos goes. And so things that relate to non-Jews on Shabbos come up in different various parts. That's why it's not in one spot. It's frustrating, by the way. You wish it was all in one spot. Sif Hey says Davar she'eno malacha ve'eno aser la'asoso b'Shabbos el mishum shvus, meaning code word dirabanan. Mutar liyisrael lomar le'eno Yehudi la'asoso b'Shabbos v'hu she'yev sham miktas choli. You can tell a non-Jew something as long as there's a situation of someone who's a little sick, right? Meaning they're not deathly ill, right? But they're sick. Osh yeh tzarech ladavar tzorech harbe, or there's some great need. Oh, b'pnei mitzvah. Okay, this is what I talk about. This is the psak that you can tell a non-Jew to do something if it's a derabanan and it's a makom mitzvah or makom tzarech gadol, or if it's a situation of chole. Keitzad, what's the situation? Omer Yisrael le'eno Yehudi b'Shabbos la'alos be'ilan lahavi shofar litkot kiyas mitzvah. O lahavi mayim derech chatzer shelo ervu lirchotz bo hamitztayer. B'yesh osrim. Some also are. But the Rama Paul points out there, look, Haman Simon Tav Kuf Peivav Pasak Lahatir. Okay, okay. And by the way, he says, take a look at Reish and Vav that there are those who are making lafil b'melacha do raisa. Okay, but the psak halacha seems to be here, certainly according to the Rama, that it's supposed to b'makom mitzvah, sort of a double derabanan, a amir lanachi on top of a derabanan, is permissible when there's a great need or a mitzvah situation, and that's what he's pointing out here. He's like, we don't rely on the Baal HaItur. That's not the Psak Halacha. The Psak Halacha is not to follow the Baal HaItur. Now, let's talk about how this really plays out in a very practical way. Let's take a look at the Mishnah Berurah, who goes into some detail here. And then we're going to read the story of the Aruch HaShulchan's childhood, where he reflects on something he saw from his childhood in terms of what was the minhag. From his childhood, it tells you straight up what did I see? Okay, now, so we are in Mishnah Berurah land. Here we are down below, and Sif Katan Achaf L'Seudas Shabbos. Okay, this is talking about how the opinion of the Baal HaItur that if is a Seudas Shabbos, people there are those that say it's mutter to tell a non-Jew to light the candle for that Seudah. Hainu sheyoshev b'choshech. Ve'ein lo shum ner lechol. You're sitting in otherwise the people are sitting in darkness, and ve'ein lo shum, and you have no candle by which to eat at all. Aval im gamar seudaso, but if you've completed your meal and the lights go out, af shadayin lo berach birchas hamazon. Even if you haven't benched though, so it might be hard to strain your eyes, whatever you look at your bencher. O sheyesh lo ner echad, or let's say you're in the middle of the meal and the lights go out. And there is no, we'll get to the story later. I promise you, it's a good story. Oh, sheyesh no nerach. Oh, there's one candle that's already lit in the room. Pshita da asr letzavos le'eno Yehudi lahadlik lo. Duh, pshita. That's how I always teach my students to translate pshita. Duh. Of course, you can't tell the non-Jew to light the candle. Like it's you have a candle already. Okay, you want more? Be happy that you have one. Right, you don't need more light. It's enough light to see. You're okay. That would be asking an non-Jew to do a derabanan when there's no mitzvah. Like at least when there's no candle lights on, I can't see the food. I can't now engage in the meal, the oneg Shabbos of the meal. But if I'm able to engage in the mitzvah of oneg Shabbos, and I just don't have the most oneg Shabbos because I can't. It's not the most illuminated it could be in the room. That's not makom mitzvah. That's not makom mitzvah.
Benching is deraita.
What was that?
Benching is deraita.
I assume that there he's trying to say that you bench Baal Peh. That you'll bench Baal Peh. Okay, you'll struggle. You'll. One person will say it out loud. Not everybody knows the benching around the table. You're absolutely right, by the way. The Birkat HaMazon, especially at the end of a Shabbos meal, for sure it's right because everyone's full, everyone's plotting, right? It's definitely Vitzavata, right? But, yes, I think the assumption here is that extra comment there that he's pointing out is, yeah.
That it's not just doing any mitzvah. It's a mitzvah. It's something special. It's not just like, oh, I couldn't do Hashavah. Like this has to be like a big mitzvah. It's not just any mitzvah.
100%.
That's why they use this example because you're right.
And if you look at the Shar Hatziyah down below, by the way, I didn't look at that beforehand. It reads the Chav Ches down there. He says, "Okay, v'yesh la'ayin im yesh lo kos levirchas hamazon." Using a cup for benching. And I said, well, what do I need to see the cup? As long as I can pick the cup up, I don't need to see the cup. So unlike your dinner food when you're like all the food on the table, it's a different situation. He says, take a look later on, where it says, that when you're doing this, or sorry, earlier on in Shulchan Aruch, no sein bo einav. You're supposed to, when you hold a cup, you're supposed to put your eyes on it.
What's the
And if it's dark,
I saw this, but what's the
right?
purpose of putting eyes on?
Why do we put our eyes
What
on
do
the
you
cup?
see your face reflection on the wine?
I forget now. With anybody remember? I would have to go look it up. Admitting
I mean, I always thought
Yeah.
like on Shabbos when you're making kiddush, you're supposed to look at when you
Yeah,
get the break
yeah.
Right, you're supposed to look at it because I make the bracha on.
Right.
Is it anything more than that? I don't think it's anything more than that. No.
Is it because you want to make sure the wine is good and you're making kiddush?
I think you're just.
But the reflection it gives you. I don't know. I'm just.
I was wondering if it's like a matter of kavanah. That you like you're intent on what you're making the bracha. The benching on this, and then you're gonna make a bar prayer gofen. Yeah. But anyways, he says that if according to what the Ramah's paskins, we should be machmir against that, because that's not really a makom mitzvah. You're good. You're like, okay, so you'll be fine. So I think it's also the Mishnah Berurah. I think he's added note. The Chafetz Chaim just added his notes at the bottom. Chafetz Chaim dominates this page. Okay, so now let's finish up what the Mishnah Berurah here in this comment says. Mihu, im yesh lo shum ner v'ovar v'tziva le'ero lahadlik lo ner acher shari lahanos mimenu ba'od shaner harishon dolek. But if a person goes ahead and violates this halacha and they tell a non-Jew to light an extra candle, there was already one, now it lights an extra candle. You're permitted to benefit from it as long as the first candle is still lit. As we'll see in Sif Gimel, Sif Daled.
Asking the second candle.
You're not allowed to, but if you did, you violated the law. You violated the law, and now you have a second candle. So we're gonna make you run away from the room. We're not gonna do that to you. You can benefit from the candle as long as the first one is lit, because at least you're benefiting. Because you're getting, you could say that, okay, but the benefit I'm getting is I could have gotten enough benefit from that first candle also. And we'll talk about more of this about that idea in Sif Daled. We're gonna get there. Chaf Aleph, Amir le'eno Yehudi. That it's permissible to tell a non-Jew even when it's a doraisa. Aval shvus di Yisrael atzmo lekule alma aser afil b'mkom mitzvah. But for a Jew to do a derabanan himself or herself, everybody agrees that's prohibited, even if it's a makom mitzvah, even if there's a mitzvah that's involved in the situation. A Jew be adayim doing it on their own, even a derabanan, absolutely not.
Unless it's a nefesh.
Oh, then you could do anything. Drive to the hospital if it's a pikuach nefesh for sure. But here, even if it's a derabanan and it's but makom mitzvah, I want to do is the lights are off. Jeffrey said most of the lights today that you turn on are not doraisa, so I'll turn it on, right? Not so pashut. Now, chaf beis bimkom mitzvah. That it's even if it's a melacha doraisa, you can do this. Bimkom mitzvah. V'livnos beis hakneses b'Shabbos al yedei eno Yehudi. What about the mitzvah of building a beis hakneses? Can I ask a non-Jew to continue the construction of a shul? Be a very relevant question for the Young Israel Scarsdale soon. Can we tell the non-Jewish contractors and workers, keep plugging away on Shabbos, keep plugging away?
But
So,
Rav,
yes.
what happens if he's a contractor and he can work 3 days a week or 7 days a week? It's up to him, and you don't specifically tell him. Can he construct the shul, the building, on Shabbos?
Very good. We're about to get to the Mishnah Berurah's answer to that question in about 6-7 lines.
Oh,
So,
okay.
excellent. You're anticipating very well, Simeon. Very good. So, V'livnos beis hakneses b'Shabbos l'aleinu kosov Magen Avraham, on the page, at least in my edition. The aser afil das ha'iter, even the Baal ha'iter, who gives you the biggest heter, would tell you that you absolutely cannot tell a non-Jew to build you a shul and continue your construction on Shabbos for a shul. The Pri Megadim concludes, Mishum dehave mitzvah she'eino overes sheyachol livnos b'chol. It's not a mitzvah that the time is gonna, that it's passing mitzvah. Shabbos Suda is a passing mitzvah. a bris milah is a passing mitzvah. You're really supposed to do it on the 8th day. You could do it on the 9th, but you actually miss a tremendous mitzvah if you don't do it on that day. We allow you to do a milah on Shabbos. That's already docha. That tells you it's not a mitzvah overis. It's not a mitzvah that's coming and going. Therefore, you could do it on the weekdays. Don't try to stick this. Don't tell me it's makom mitzvah. You have other opportunities time-wise to do it. For those of you who remember from ages ago when we started Hilchot Shabbos, towards the beginning, we learned in the Mogen Avram there, Shu Oser Lasos Davar Ze'af Kablanus, even if it's about Kablanus, to Simeon's point, it's a Kablan, it's a contractor, right? Your job is build me a shul. I'm giving you 6 months to do it. Right? I'm giving you 6 months. They're not going to take 6 months. Whatever they tell you, by the way, it's going to take longer than anything. They say, okay, fine, they accept the job. They're not, it's not happening. Even on Shabbos, nope, we're not letting you do it on Shabbos. Whatever the agreement was. But there is a caveat to that. Unless there was something you're worried about, because of the delay of not allowing them to do their job on Shabbos, because you're not telling them to do it on Shabbos. I'm telling you that you need to be done by 6 months from now. And then the contractor said, look, I don't want to take any chances, so I could probably get it done if I did it 6 days a week, but I'd rather have my day off a week on Sundays so I can watch football, right? And so the contractor wants to take off Sundays. He said, I'll work Saturdays. My guys will work Saturdays. Sunday's the one day we want. I made it agree with you. What days you work is not my problem. I just want the job done by 6 months from now. If they choose to work on Shabbos in other situations, that would actually be fine. But here the problem is it's a base Knesset, and therefore this is it's like a gathering point for the Jewish people, and it's not the right thing to do. But if we're worried that the whole project won't come together, that it won't happen, if the work can't continue on Shabbos, then we will say if it's a kablan, a contractor in such a situation where there's a real chashash, a real serious thought that it won't happen altogether if it doesn't happen on Shabbos, then it will be lenient. And here it's even more lenient. This is actually a very shocking kula, that if the non-Jew won't accept the work as a kablan, as a contractor, where like kablan means like I accept the job. I don't accept. I'm not talking about hours with the person. I get paid for the job. We'll even allow it. He doesn't want that kind of relationship. I want to get paid by the day, by the hour. Right? That's chirus. Chirus means by the, define your time period. Right? Kablan is define the job for me. Chirus is define the time for me. I want to be paid by the hour. Right. And if the shul won't get built and he won't do it under the agreement of a kablan, we'll even be lenient to allow it chirus. He'll be paid by the day. So if he wants to work on Shabbos, he's getting paid for the day that he worked on Shabbos. If the shul can't be built. Yeah, it's a bit of a pella. It's what is it? This is really the Baal HaEter at his best. It's a excuse me. It's a shvut b'makom, mitzvah d'oraisa. Even though it's questionable, is it mitzvah d'oraisa to build a base Knesset? I'm not sure that's a base. I'm not sure it's a mitzvah d'oraisa. Give me big and Beis Hamikdash. I'll tell you that's a d'oraisa to build a Beis Hamikdash. That the Mikdash Ma'at. I'm not sure it's a mitzvah d'oraisa, but yet we're lenient to rely on asking an non-Jew to do it, and we're paying him. By the way, he's really yeah. Again, I don't think that practically. I don't know what the shul's deal is with the contractor. I really have no knowledge of it, but I can't imagine that while that they're going to allow the non-Jew to non-Jewish contractor to work on Shabbos here. Whenever they constructed the building, there are 6 other days of the week that that they have to work. So again, that's only really if you're concerned that it won't happen, not that there'll be a delay, right? That it won't happen. Okay.
Or that the person won't take the job, right?
Or the person won't take the job, right? Like, I want to get the job done faster. Let me work 7 days a week.
Right.
Because I want to move on to the next job. You're denying me my opportunity to maximize my my profits. Yeah, correct. And then I can't find another contractor because I'm in some town in Poland where there are 20 Jews and there are 100 not like it's like how many contractors are there, right? So yeah, okay. Chaf Gimel. The Ein Mocha, don't protest. If people are relying on such the Bal Ha'iter when it's Makom and the wedding situation, the Bris Milah, things like that, he says don't put up a whole stink. Okay, the Ein Mocha. Now these them be fighting words. What we're about to see right now. Okay, he says here, Umutav shiyu shogegin v'alyu mezidin. Okay,
Don't teach.
He
them,
says
teach
don't
them
don't start protesting because let them rather be doing something wrong.
because they don't know.
They don't know any better than they're doing it wrong on purpose. What is the Mishnah Berurah basically saying? To rely on the Bala Itter is wrong. That's what he's saying. That to rather let them do it wrong without them fully being aware of how wrong it is, because we know that the shogeg is a much better category to be in than be mazid. Mazid means I know that I should know better. Shogeg is I don't know any better, and one you can more easily attain kapara and tshuva, whatever. And when you do something b'mezid, it's not so easy
But if
to
you amaze it
correct.
by relying on Baal Ha'itor.
That's why I said these are fighting words. This is the Mishnah Berurah really, saying like it is incorrect to rely on the Baal Ha'itor. That's how I read those words. By the way, my extra comments by the way, a couple of things I wanted to share. By the way, but one about the Beis HaKnesses. This is number 38 for those of you who are following, keeping score. If you end up having to tell the shul to have the kabbalah do the work on Shabbos, he won't agree to the job unless he says I can work on Saturdays. What do you have to do? It has to go in the bulletin. He says v'hosif bazeh that it's mutter u'bevadshiu mefursam l'chol shu b'kablanus. You have to tell everybody in the bulletin he is a kablan. We paid him for as a contractor. We couldn't. He's insisting he wants to do the job. Otherwise, we have no deal. We couldn't find anyone else, who could realistically do the job. So we're letting you know that you'll hear that on Shabbos, but just know that first of all, we didn't want this, and he's a contractor. He doesn't have to do this work. He doesn't have to. You're not telling me he has to work on Shabbos. Okay. Other comment number 39. We're gonna get there.
So basically, you're not allowed to do it in your house because if it's
Yeah, in your house, it's absolutely awesome. That's right. That's what we talked about a couple of years ago, early in Hilchot Shabbat. If it's your own house, you'll say, "Oh, it's a kabbalah." No, but it's your house, and to have work being done by Beis Yisrael is we talked about that. That's a big problem. That's a big problem that there should be work going on, even though technically the arrangement seems like it's mutter. The rabbis made a gzera. 39 in the extra comments here. When can I protest? Right? When should I? Maybe I shouldn't just let them be shogig. If I know that they'll listen, so I should say something, right? But so when should I not say anything? When I know they're not going to listen to me. But when should I say something? Well, even if they might listen to me, then mechuyav limchos. Then you should say, you really shouldn't do this. You shouldn't rely on this opinion, or this looks like it's mutter, but you really shouldn't do it. Now, okay, next comment here. Shchaf Dalet. This is talking about that if there's no great need, we're machmir to not allow reliance on the Bala Itter's opinion. He was here. Let's. He was a Rishon. Hold on, he was an Ashkenazi Rishon. I forget his name right now. He had other. By the way, if you learn when you learn in Smicha, enough halacha, he had some other interesting opinions. He is the one who says that when you want to kasher glass, you put it in the bathtub for 72 hours, and every 24 hours you change the water, and that can kasher it, which halachically doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
Glass?
Yeah, glassware. If you want to kasher glass, you put it in a tub of water, and you change it. Not that it's hot water; it's water.
China is the problem.
Right, that would be something similar, right? Now, hold on. Yeah, right, his name was Yitzchak ben Abba Mari, right? He was in Provence in Marseille. Okay, 1122 to 1193, right? That's Yitzchak ben Abba Mari. Okay, so again in Provence. And in Provence, it's interesting. I took a class in Revel in the Jewish history about the Jewish community in Provence. And in Provence, they weren't always aware of what everything was being said in northern France or in the Sephardic land. So they were the crossroads often of these things. Other famous rabbis who came from the most well known is the Ravid, who often we know for his arguing with the Rambam, though he wrote his own parish on Gemara, which we don't have much left of. There are two Masechtas that we have a copy of, though we know that he wrote on the whole all of Shas,
Nice.
which is unfortunate that we lost through the years. Not through the years. The manuscripts didn't survive. And then also the other very famous rabbi who came from that is the Meiri. The Meiri was from Provence. But anyway, so the Baal HaIter was from Provence, and he had his shitas. We got 1100s. So he's an early Rishon. This is not late stuff.
Is this a story?
No, not yet. We'll get there. I know you're excited for story time. We're gonna get to the story. But anyway, so that's what the Baal HaIter is. Just a little bit about him. Okay, now, so Chavdal Ushla. Okay, the Shla Hakadosh, right? Hichmir af letzorech gadol v'shekein ra noagim bekehilos chashuvim shiyoshvim b'chashecha b'motzai Shabbos afilu b'chasana ad she'amru hakal baruch hu. Says the Shla was very machmir about this whole question. Can you rely on the Baal HaIter? Can you have people turning on manjus, turning on lights for you? And he said the Shla was very machmir, even when there was a great need. He wouldn't rely on such a thing. And he said, "V'shikein ra noagim bekehilos chashuv." He said, "And many chashuv kehilos." I don't know how you become in the status of a chashuv kehila. You're a chashuv kehila. Okay. Like Scarsdale, right?
Yeah.
Sheyoshvim b'chashecha. They would sit in the dark on Motzei Shabbos, even if there was a wedding, until at least they said, a Baruch Hu. I'm assuming by chasana here. How do you have a chasana on Shabbos that goes ad Motzei Shabbos? Chasanas on Shabbos are not allowed, and they allowed, and they had the Sudas chasana on Friday night. That did happen for sure. We know historically that happened, but to have it on Motzei Shabbos, that it drag on. So I gotta imagine this must be something of like a Sheva brachos or something. Otherwise, I don't understand. I don't know. You don't have your addition today. I was curious with Steve's when I was preparing. I was like, I wonder if the Osa Hadar had something on this one. Maybe Steve, you'll let us know when you get back home if there's something there. Because how a chasana could drag on into Motzei Shabbos without you having daven yet? I could get a Sheva brachas dragging on after that was the Chalashudas that drags on into the evening and you didn't daven yet because you didn't say Baruch Hu. And apparently they sat in the dark. They didn't. The lights went out because the lights were lit for a certain amount of time, and there was not enough oil that lasted that long, so they sat in the dark until they said Baruch Hu. As again, they would sit in shalashus, and the shalashus would drag on by this mefursam Rav. But the Prima Gadim says no, we could be lenient. If your Shalashus goes beyond it's going to play Shabbos, and people are sitting in the dark now because the lights have gone out. So even if it's only just bein hashmashos, he allows it. V'cholshkin in erev Shabbos bein hashmashos tzorach mitzvah v'vaday mutter. K'lekaman seven shinman beis ayin sham. So I did my homework again. I go to Shimon Beis towards the very, very, very end of Hilchot Shabbos. What do you find there? That if you ask that if it's your bein hashmashos on either end of Shabbos, the halacha is, I'll even read it to you. So again, really all the way at the end. And Shimon Beis, all right, he says, Kol dvarim shem asur b'divrei sofer, if anything is asur midrabanan, lo gozra le'em bein hashmashos. That during the bein hashmashos period, we're not goes there on isurim derabanan if there is a great need. So if the only is asur midrabanan during the twilight period, like after sunset, before it's dark with 3 stars, you're allowed to do a derabanan if there's a great need. And he says because of this, when he talks about mutar lomar bein hashmashos le'eroi lahadlik on Shabbos near b'Shabbos. This is the Shulchan Aruch, black on white. You can tell a non-Jew, Ben Hashmashos, if there's some light, ooh, I forgot to turn this light on. If it's still Ben Hashmashos, and there's a real need, not like I need my fancy chandelier to be on, but I have it on my light, but I want my light to look a certain way. No. If there's no light and it's going to affect, Shabbos in a real way, there's no light above my dining room table. That's different. So then it's permissible. Oh yeah, sorry, Sammy, go ahead.
Rav, the Shlaw talks about permissibility kicking in at the recitation of Baruch Hu.
Right. Shabbos is over then.
My understanding is the trigger mechanism is Atachan Antanu.
Yeah, so you're absolutely right, except, I'll give, for example, like this past year, after Tisha B'Av was over, we didn't say Atachon Antanu first. First, we said Baruch Hamavdim and Kodesh L'chol, and then we drove to Shul. So when he says Baruch, he means Mariv, and often people before Mariv, especially if Shabbos dragged, on for a long time, like in the descriptions of what we're talking about here, people would just say Baruch Hamavdim and Kodesh L'chol, and then they would daven Mariv, because then you're permitted to do certain things, right? The magic words. Once Shabbos, the time bias has ended, and I say the magic words, Baruch Hamavdim and Kodesh L'chol, I'm allowed to do malacha. I can't eat. That's a separate topic we'll get to later in Hilchot Shabbat, but I could do malacha. So, that's Baruch Hu is code word for davening Marav. I'm ready. They saying in there and saying Baruch Hamavdim and Kodesh L'chol right beforehand. Okay, good question though. Excellent. Now Chaf Hey. Okay, the Rova poskim cholkim, right? Most poskim disagree. Okay, so most poskim disagree, and so here's what he says: when we call makom, mutar lomar le'eno yehudi letaken. We call makom mutar lomar le'eno yehudi letaken es ha'eruv sheniskalkelu b'Shabbos kedei shelo yavo rabim lidei michshol. Uchadaihu bal ha'it. This is a very famous words. If you had a pen or a pencil, like when we smicha, like often we would like underline important lines. This is an underline worthy line, right? Uchadaihu bal ha'it lismoch alav lahatir shvus amira afila b'malacha da'araisa b'mkom mitzvah de rabim. Famous words. Okay, he says if it is nevertheless permissible to tell a non-Jew to fix the eruv, which got ruined on Shabbos, in order kedei shelo yavo rabim lidei michshol, so many don't stumble on this halacha. Not that they stumble, that they're going to trip over the wire. Not worried about that. They're going to stumble on this halacha of carrying on Shabbos when it's not permissible to. And he says the k'dai, meaning it's fitting to rely on the Baal HaItur when there's a shvus, when it comes to the shvus of Amira, the derabanan of telling a non-Jew to do something, when it's a malacha deoraisa, meaning I can tell a non-Jew to do a deoraisa if it's a mitzvah derabim, if it's a mitzvah that affects the public. So the Eruv is a perfect example of that, because if the one wire of the Eruv goes down on Shabbos, now the whole community, first of all, even in our day and age of easy communication, on Shabbos, I can't send an email blast to everybody, WhatsApp to the whole shul community. The Eruv is down. Don't stop carrying right now. I can't do that. But if the Eruv goes down in the middle of Shabbos afternoon, I can't get word to everybody. And so now the whole community is going to violate Shabbos left and right. Not knowingly. It's not amazing. But they're all going to be in violation of the halacha of Hotzah.
Isn't there a rule that if the Eruv was up on Erev Shabbos,
very
you
good.
can assume that it's good to Shabbos?
Oh, for sure. You could as Alta Chazaka.
Yeah, in this case, you're saying that somebody actually saw it.
Yes, we know the Eruv is down. I see the wire with my own eyes, right? In our community, that's actually quite hard because the edges of the Eruv they're quite far. The Scarsdale part of it actually over there. It's by that park where we had that softball tournament. I forgot the name of the field. So the Eruv goes right along that street. But also, most people are not going to know to notice that a lechi is down or a wire is down. Like, let's say that I'm on a walk and I know the Eruv. I know the Eruv like the back of my hand. I know the Eruv like the back of my hand. And I see that I look on Shabbos, I'm walking, and Well, the gosh, the Eruv is down. We rely on this. This is an important, and there's no kula here. Oh, you can skip this one. That's really down. I have no way of getting word to everybody that it's down. So, but yes, if you don't know any better, then you chazaka, you assume it's up. The other thing I thought you were going to say was that isn't there something that if the Eruv is good before, when Shabbos starts, even if it's something happens on Shabbos, then it's okay. That's only with the Eruv matzahs. Somebody comes on Shabbos and the Eruv and eats the Eruv food, then we say it's fine, even though the Eruv food doesn't exist now because it's in somebody's stomach. You can the rest of Shabbos is good. The next Shabbos you have to reestablish the Eruv food. But when it comes to the actual physical Eruv, if the structure of the Eruv goes down, the Eruv is immediately considered down, and now you can't carry. So he says here, you could ask a non-Jew. So I could go over to Juan if I ever notice such a thing. I go, Juan, this snapped, this broke. I need you to fix it right now, because otherwise people are just going to continuously be over the Avera. Yeah, Jeffrey, go ahead.
Yeah, so I want to make a distinction between a mitzvah gedola and having people do an avera, because I sort of think it as differently, right? Meaning a mitzvah gedola is you want people to be able to do a mitzvah, right? You're sort of allowing them. This is a little bit different to me. This is not about allowing people to do a mitzvah. This is preventing from doing an avera. And
correct.
To me, those are very, very different concepts. They call it a mitzvah gedola, but to me, this is not like I'm going to do something so that other people can do something good. That is not this case. This case is I'm going to do something so that people are not transgressing, which otherwise they will.
So that's an interesting. By the way, I appreciate your reading and framing of it, because what you're saying is that the line here of the Mishnah Berurah of Kedai hu lismoch al bal ha'iter, which again, you heard what the Mishnah Berurah said before. Mishnah Berurah said al yushogim yushogim al yimaziter, which means like he doesn't think the bal ha'iter is a correct opinion because every other Rishon disagrees with him.
Right.
But he's saying here. Here he's allowing it, but you're saying that that allowance is only when the public is going to be nichshol, on an avera. They don't know any better unless we do something to fix something that affects the public. That's essentially what you're saying, but not for a mitzvah, like even a positive mitzvah. You're saying for a positive mitzvah, maybe he wouldn't say kedai hu lismoch al bal ha'iter because there's not enough grape juice around town, and somebody got a hold of I tell the non-Jew, can you go over to New Rochelle and get a bottle of grape juice so people in Scarsdale can make kiddush? It's a mitzvah, right? It's an interesting distinction. We're going to see some of the poskim of the 20th century have to say. We're going to get this. I have to hold people. I got to hold their attention. As I tempt them with the story, and then I see how you want the story. Okay, now you see there I have a little 41 for those of you who have my edition of it, and I also have a 42 afterwards. But you see, as the Prima Gadim seems to agree with this Mishnah Berurah, with this take of the Mishnah Berurah that when there's the Eruv is down and mitzvah the Rabbim, you can rely on the Bal Ha'itur. Now, and let's just actually do Chav Vav also while we're at, and then we'll go do extra comments here. Chav Vav, go look at Shin Zayin. Okay, we looked at Shin Zayin over there in Sif Hey, and we saw that you don't rely on the Bal Ha'itur. That's what he says here. The Sham Gam came Mivor to Lo Bal Ha'itur. We don't really rely on the Bal Ha'itur. Okay. Now, okay, let's talk. So those of you who don't have this position, you're just going to listen for a little bit. I'm going to talk a little about what some of the some practical cases that come up, where you might say, like, I need to call a non-Jew. Is it a mitzvah the Rabbim? Is it not? So this is Shabbos Goy 101 right now. Okay? So for those of you who are following along here on number 40, and then 41 and 42, we're going to look at. So number 40, it says, a tinok, this is an interesting case. This is probably much more relevant. It's relevant, obviously, in the Chutz La'aretz too. A baby is born on Shabbos. Parents are in the hospital, right? But tinok shenolad b'Shabbos lo hechinu lo seret zihui mib'od yom. Anyone know what Seret Zihui is? I have to look this up. Identification, right? When your child is born, the first thing they slap on the baby is the ID.
This is your baby.
But how do they do it? Before they put how do they make it? Right? If you work in a hospital, you work in a hospital, right? What do they do when they make the identification? The bands, the wristbands, with it, right? They have to they have to type up all the information. It comes out on a special little printer, right? And then they goes. So can you know, can let's say sorry, I say or sorry, Rabbi Shlomo Zalman Auerbach says that I guess a hospital like in Israel, really what they should be doing is the simane to now. What is he talking about? I think here, right? Simane ziyui. I think he might be talking about a footprint, right? Here, like zihui, like the simane hazihui, the symbol of your identification. Because what happens? Baby goes to the nursery, right? And they take care of the baby. There are tons of babies there, right? How do I know which baby, first of all, to return to the parents? After they go, all these babies are in the nursery. There's the wristband for sure. But also, we ever notice that they also do that. They do prints. Okay, they don't just do it because I think that they want the how cute. I still keep the ones for my kids, in the hospital. Like, look how tiny their feet were. I don't think that's the only reason they do it. I think it's in my night. Or we might have moved it. We might have moved it to a special folder with all our happy memories. And no doubt you will today. But so I believe so that's what's going on here. And this is like ksiva, right? To put a thumbprint or a footprint is to tell a non-Jew to do it though, that would be okay. That would be okay. Okay. And the reason I was probably in Israel because Shlomo Zalman was being asked the question in hospitals in Israel. Can we do? Yes, just tell a non-Jewish nurse or whatever, or some non-Jewish there to do the stamping, do the whatever. A lot of the other things I'm sure that happen on Shabbos they need to do because they need to do it. It's this hospital. Okay, 41, and if you're using my edition, now L'tzorech mitzvahs yishuv Eretz Yisrael. What about the mitzvah of settling the land of Israel? Kogon lomar lenochri liknos avuro bayis linochri acher be'eretz Yisrael kasav lekaman shemutar avodas hashulchan aruch. The Shulchan Aruch we're going to see later on says, let's say something goes up for sale. Some non-Jew in Israel owns a piece of land. I have a non-Jewish friend who lives in Israel, and he knows I'm looking to buy karka, land in Israel. There's a mitzvah to buy up. A Jew should buy land in Israel. Particularly if it's being sold by a non-Jew, and so you want to fulfill the mitzvah of Yishuv Eretz Israel. So on Shabbos, I can tell a non-Jew that's a serious mitzvah. That will allow you could tell the non-Jew to make a deal for you to buy the karka in Eretz Yisrael land. So the Yishuv Eretz Yisrael. Now, v'chein in mitzvah mila. What about the mitzvah of bris mila? Obviously, you know that you're allowed to do a mila on Shabbos for sure. Gasav lekaman shehasomech al habal iter lo hifsid im efshar beinyan acher aval im pasha velo heichin me'etmol. So let's say you don't prepare the bris though. So let's say the mohel didn't get everything all squared away, so it was ready in the place where the bris mila was going to happen. So the Be'er Halacha says she'aser lo mar lenochrin. There, that's not okay. That's if you right. If you were pasha, if you were negligent, you could have prepared from beforehand. You didn't prepare. Then we're going to say no. I'm sorry. But if it wasn't possible, let's say someone knocks on my door. I'm not a mohel, by the way. But somebody knocked on my door. Let's pretend I'm a mohel. Shabbos. Somebody says, "I hear, Rabbi, that you're a mohel also, and we're looking at our son's. It's 8th day today." So I didn't have a chance to prepare, but there's a mitzvah that's overes. So can I go over to the non-Jew and say, can you carry the mila knife to the other place? Usually we say, no, you can't do that, right? Because you know when a mila is going to happen. You can count the days. But let's say I couldn't prepare. Some family who's very minimally connected to the Jewish community, but they want to get a bris mila. They couldn't find anybody. They heard about me. So maybe then, okay, if you rely on the Baalei Ter, lo hifsid, if there was not other way to do it. Now, what about another case? The nafal schach hasukkah beyomtiv. Ever happened, right? The schach falls on sukkah. It's yomtiv, not chol hamoed. What do you do? My whole yomtiv is ruined. I can't fix it. That's tikkun. I'm being matake in the sukkah. So kasav lekaman shemutar lomar lenochri. It's a shulchan aruch. Mutar lomar lenochri sheyisakech lo es hasukkah. You could tell a non-Jew to cover the sukkah, even though, by the way, then the sukkah becomes a sukkah ganbach, okay, which is a sukkah that's made one of them by a non-Jew. Bottom line is we permit it. It is much halachically preferable if a Jew is the one who puts up the schach. So what happens? So I'm very thankful. Our staff here every year helps us put up the frame of the sukkah. But what do I always tell them? I'm always insistent to I'm gonna put up the schach. I'm gonna put up the schach because it makes the level of the sukkah a little high. Again, if you have sukkah's gambach, though, it is mutter. Technically, it's mutter. You can eat in such a sukkah. אומנם לכמן שמסתפק בזה, מבואר שם בפרק שהספיקו, האם יש לסמוך על בעל היתר רק באופן שאין לו סוכה אחרת? But what if is that okay? If there's no sukkah, another sukkah? Or can I go to if the neighbor has a sukkah or the shul has a sukkah? And it's inconvenient for me, but I can carry my food to the shul sukkah. So there's another sukkah. Is it just for mere convenience? I can just ask the non-Jew to fix my sukkah? Then it's already not. He's like, I'm not so sure about that. Okay, there's no other sukkah in town. I wonder if some of these towns in Europe back in the day, did everybody have a sukkah, or they had like a sukkah for everybody came? But in the city, I remember when I lived in Washington Heights, the shul there had a sukkah, and you literally signed up ahead of time for times to eat your meal.
Right.
Because when could you can't build a sukkah in your own building. So it can't be possible. So maybe it's only when there's no other sukkah available that I can ask the non-Jew to fix my sukkah. The gam bishum sheyesh lomar shulachach sukkah sheidira sarai hurak issa derabanan. So maybe I can rely. Maybe it's only issa derabanan because the dira sarai. It's not really a full issa of bona. What does he say at the end? Shechalil lehoros heter bazeh. You shouldn't ask a non-Jew to ask. Yeah, that's what the Pri Megadim says. You shouldn't ask a non-Jew to fix your sukkah. Come on, because you'll have some other sukkah. If you have no other sukkah, you'll find a solution. Go to a neighbor, go to a friend, you'll figure it out. I want you to pay attention to this because this is affects the shul. What about there's a tzorech tefillah? Right? Kosav b'sheilos v'shuos igros Moshe. Moshe Feinstein Paskins. Shenechshav mitzvah shel rabim. V'lachein hitir lomar lenochui lechabos mizgan shemikarer באופן שמפריע למספר בית הכנסס עד שרבים מספר בית הכנסס אף שהם רק מיעוט מהמספרים עוזבים בית הכנסס מחמאס הקור. This happens in our shul all the time. People are complaining it's too cold. It's too cold. Shut the air conditioning off. By the way, in the women's section, it's always more freezing than the men's section. And that's why they look like they're wearing their winter coats sometimes in there. And so Rav Moshe wrote in the Igros Moshe that Torah, the Kriyas HaTorah and Tefillah in a tzibur space is considered a mitzvah derabim, and therefore he paskin that you can ask a non-Jew to turn off the mizgan. What's the mizgan? The air conditioning.
Yes.
Right, and he says if it's being mafriya the mispalim, if it's they are how do you say mafriya? They're bothered, right? So I couldn't think of the English word. I've been speaking so much Hebrew lately. I've been like, my English is getting worse. There's so many Israelis now in WDS that I'm speaking Hebrew more than I think English in school. So he says that it's disturbing the daveners so much so that they, even if it's just, even if it's just some of them who are leaving the shul because or they're like we can't stay here. And what's going to happen? People won't daven with the kehillah, and they won't hear Kriyas HaTorah with the kehillah. This is what Rav Moshe wrote. V'chein lehadlik es haor shekava bebeis hamedrash shalom de barabim. You know how in our shul somehow there's something that goes wrong. Andre once explained to me. You ever wonder why the lights go out in our shul just randomly?
Yeah.
You ever wonder this?
It's been ever since they built it.
I said somebody by accident.
No.
Never is it because somebody touched something.
No.
The lights go off in our shul. Like I asked
It's happened.
what?
It's happened.
What did you say, Simeon?
It has happened. It has happened, and it presented itself as a learning moment. I think it was Rabbi Rubinstein at the time and I believe it was on a Friday night, and the shul went dark, and he sent somebody out to call Andre. Andre took care of it. The lights went on, and there was a learning moment about this particular halacha.
Yes, and so because it's a mitzvah the rabbim, tefillah b'tzibor, according to Rav Moshe Feinstein, it's a mitzvah the rabbim. You can no, it's designed. The reason went wrong. By the way, Andre told me the reason is there's something flawed between the office and there. There is some signal that goes wrong sometimes, and so the lights go out. The system shuts down because it's not getting some sort of signal from somewhere in the office. There's another. Whatever, and so there's that flow of electricity. Something goes wrong with it for a moment, and so it shuts off. Nobody's touching anything anywhere, and so that's why you see here all the time. Someone goes and gets whether it's the security guard, whether it's someone from the staff, to go turn it on because they're relying on this Rav Moshe. Okay, that when the lights go out in the base madrash, people are learning there. They're not going to be able to see the sefer they're learning. They're not going to be able to, so that you can do such a thing. Hilchot Shabbat, Bishmo Shel Gaon Rav Aaron Kotler. Okay, who guys know Rav Aaron Kotler from Lakewood. Okay. Shehitir lahadlik as laor beis hamedrash al yedei nochri bishum mitzvahs Talmud Torah shel Rabbim. Talmud Torah. They're giving a shear to everybody, and the lights go out. People can't see the source sheet, can't see the chumash, whatever it is. So Rav Kotler said this was permissible. It's a mitzvah shel Rabbim. Mitzvah Talmud Torah shel Rabbim. Me'idach. Now, on the other hand, le'inyan generator shel yeshiva shekava. What if the generator of a yeshiva goes out? So now the heat's not coming in. Okay. Koslav Hagon Rav Elyashiv. Shaf al pisha b'sefer Heshiv Moshe evi yesh kehilos shenagu lahakel ulahadlikol yedei nochim mishum Talmud Torah derabim. Rav Elyashiv said, "Nakol lamaisa ein roi lahater." I know that the Rav Moshe writes such a thing, whatever. Practically, we shouldn't rely on this. Ein roi lahater.
You didn't mention generator.
Right, which means that there's a different story. The air conditioning, they also air conditioning. Air conditioning is a derabbanan. What Del Rice happens with an air conditioning? When air conditioning goes on? What happens? Lamaisa. That's what happens. What happens in the air? We never go in those rooms here, or in our own house. What happens when the air conditioning goes on? There's a motor that goes, right? Is that the Oraisa? There's no fire there, right? When the generator goes on, the heat is a more serious question, right? It's cold in the shul. We need heat. That's a different story. But that's like the or. That's like if people are going to leave because it's too cold, then you might say that it's a mitzvah the Rabbim on this or the Oraisa, and that's where Moshe's tshuva comes in handy. But Rav Elyashiv doesn't like it. He says, at the end of the day, ein roi lahater. Kevan, why? She'isra amir lanochri parutz be'enei habrios. Because what happens, and this is what I was talking about a few weeks ago, because then people think it's okay to just do it at your own home. People think, I learned from what I see, and they're going to see, and I think he's right. He's right in the sense that people see, and they say, oh, what? And not because there be no malice. They say, what's the difference? But if you don't understand that the mitzvah, the rabbim aspect of it, it is confusing, and so that's why Rav Elyashiv was not comfortable relying on this heter. We do that. We rely on this heter all the time here. I'm just being honest, and I don't know what other shuls do. I have to imagine that some also do that as well. But Rav Elyashiv was uncomfortable with it because of that reason. He wasn't arguing with Rav Moshe on a tachlis, in terms of like the nuts and bolts of his svara. He was arguing that it's going to, parutz, it's parutz be'enei habrios. People are going to learn the wrong thing. V'hafsakas peulas generator, hu davar matzui, that the generator goes off sometimes. This is common. So if you're going to allow it in shul, then people are going to say, people are going to make mistakes. They're going to think, I can do it in my own life, in my own personal home. And that's not a mitzvah the rabbim anymore. There might be reasons that in a home that for safety reasons, if the heat goes out and it's a dangerously cold night, that's a different story. We'll get to that, but it's a little uncomfortable. So they're not. That's where he was uncomfortable. Now, good. We're going to go into the story time now. Okay. One more thing about Amir al-Nochri for today, and then we're going to stop. Oh boy, we really went long. I'm sorry, I was so into my learning today. Okay, sorry, I really is. Okay, good. I love Talmud Torah. Okay. So the Aruch HaShulchan tells a story from his childhood about Amir al-Nochri, and he here's what he says. I'm just going to read his words. So you don't have this in front of you, just listen. Uvenehira beyalduti. He says it appears from my childhood. It's like I have a memory. Hayunagim belele Shabbos b'chorif shehalelos arukim, that they shehayunagim belele Shabbos b'chorif shehalelos arukim, that they used to on long winter nights in Ashkenazi lands, right, where he lived. They used to call for a non-Jew lisholo, and they would ask him, "Retzoncha b'tzin senat yain sraf? Do you want a bottle of whiskey?" I'm reading the words of the Aruch HaShulchan. I'm not making anything up. He says, "Do you want a bottle of whiskey?" V'haya omer shirotze, and the guy would say, "It's a question." V'heshivo lo v'heshivo, and they would answer to him, "Ritzonenu litein lecha. We want to give you a bottle of whiskey. Aval ma na'aseh. What can we do? I can't find it in the dark." Right? I'm just reading the words now. So what would he do? He would go, "It's in that room? Great." And he said, "I've got a free bottle? Free bottle." He got great. And so he would go in there and be like, "What's the problem?" Flip the light on, and he goes, then he v'shos the hayin straf. He would go, and he would start pouring himself. He would drink the whiskey. No problem. V'holechlo. And he'd go. He's like, "Shkoyach, thank you." He didn't turn the light off, though. So now the Jewish people in that house, I remember from my childhood, and now they had the lights on, so they could use the lights on Friday nights because it was a long winter. Now you have to imagine also, right? It's not like today. Oh, I forgot to turn the light on. Their candles went out, right? They put enough oil, but it was a long Friday night. We're going to stay up so late. Maybe we're going to go to sleep. So we went long. So it was a long Friday night. They were staying up. They were talking with the family, and they go, the lights went out. So they called some neighbors, a non-Jewish neighbor, and they tempted him with the whiskey. So he says, "V'nira the heter gamuru." Yeah, he says, "Aruch HaShulchan Paskins says what my family did, what I remember from my childhood, totally fine. Now that I'm older, I've learned all the halachas. Heter gamur," he says. Heter gamur hu be'eno Yehudi she'eno ragil bo. As long as he's not we don't normally ask the same guy. V'leka lamecha shema'arim, so that he doesn't realize that we're tricking him. Right? He doesn't realize that this is all a big trick. Because why? Yeah, I'm doing a trick. I'm getting him to turn the lights on. But here's the thing. What do we care? He only turned on the lights for himself. Why? They tempted him with the whiskey. They said, "If you want the whiskey, it's through the dark room over there." Okay? So you go get it. You have night vision? Okay, you'll figure it out. That's your problem. Masha Ain Kane, but he says, he's very careful though. He said that's mutter because he lit the light for himself. Masha Ain Kane ima'eno Yehudi hu mehame'arim have hadlaka b'shvil ha'yisrael be'aser. He goes because they come over and said, "There's a whiskey in that room over there." Knock, knock, knock. "Oh, are you interested in whiskey? I have some whiskey in a room." "Oh, fantastic. Cool, so come with me." "Oh, it's through that room over there." Goes, "Oh yeah, this again. Okay, I got it." And once he gets the trick, then it's no longer mutter anymore. Right? Once he gets it, then he's the trickster. Even though he might get the whiskey out of it, but he understands what he's doing for me. And therefore, when he turns it on, he's not just doing it for the whiskey at this point. He understands he's also doing it for me. If he's not doing this as a trick to help us, but rather he's really doing it for himself, even if he's the ben bias, and I essentially trick him into something, but he's doing it for himself, then it's mutter. But if he's not, he knows he's cracked the code already. We've done this too many times, and he understands exactly what's happening. Then afilu eno ben bias, even if he's not your ben bias. So because if you're ben bias, you start to learn. You see our staff here; they get to know the halachos of Shabbos very quickly. But even if it's not a bad bias, but he understands that it's a trick. It's very cold in my house. Okay. Why are you knocking my door? Why are you knocking on my door? Because it's very cold in my house. Oh, you have a Sabbath thing you probably can't do. You need me to do it? I just said it was cold in my house. That's not permissible, right? And that's why the Aruch LaShulchan says the ben bias al pirov, he's the ma'arim. He gets it usually pretty quickly. You have to understand. You have to know the person, understand the situation. It's not so easy to have a heter with the tricky language. That's why I says what my family, what I saw in my childhood. That's mutter. We genuinely tricked the guy, and not tricked him. We gave him the bottle of whiskey, but we said the bottle of whiskey is through that way. So what did he do? He naturally, turned on lights. It's dark. We can't light lights on top, but you can go in there. If you want the whiskey, it's up to you. You don't need the whiskey. If you don't want the whiskey, don't take the whiskey. And so he lit but he took it. He's like, good, shkoyach, thank you, I'm out of here. And so that's just wanted to share that story because I think it really reflects the halacha in terms of when is the trickery permitted and when is it not permitted. I'm going to stop here. I went way over time. Thank you for your learning with me and your patience for my nonsense. But hopefully you learned a lot about the practical halachas of today of Amir Lenachim.
Thank you very much.
Rav,
Thank you. Yes, Simeon.
what happens if